It's no secret the Chiefs are now 5-5 on the season. Plus, the Indianapolis Colts are arguably the most surprising team of the 2025 season in the entire NFL. It's those two teams that will meet at noon at GEHA Field at Arrowhead Stadium on Sunday. It's the start of a one-game season. And this edition of Defending the Kingdom, like them all, is presented by Ticketmaster, who could be your new best friend or your old best friend, as it were, for your ticket needs.
Mahomes over the middle, pass caught, and it's caught by Kelsey inside the 10, inside the 5, Kelsey leaps, touchdown, Kansas City!
Hi everyone, I'm Mitch Holthus, voice of the Chiefs, along with senior team reporter Matt McMullen, and here we are. And people can talk about it. We see graphics go up. The Chiefs are out of the playoffs. They're the 9th seed. They're not going to make it. It's over. So let's just boil it down, because you can have all those discussions. And really, when you get it down to the bottom, it is a one-game season. This is a one-game season with the Colts. People get tired of cliches. Play it one game at a time. Well, this is one game at a time, a one-game season.
Yeah, so not where we expected to be when the season began, right? 5-5. Not at all where we thought this team would be at this point in the year. But, yeah, everything is still right in front of them. It's just a matter of attacking every single game and finishing this thing out right. The Chiefs are right in the thick right now of this wild card chase, right? And there's a lot of teams in the middle of it. Well, if we take care of our own business, I'm confident the Chiefs will get to where they need to go at the end of the year. But you're right. We can't really think too far ahead. We talked about this on Rewind. It's been fun as Chiefs fans over the last several years. At this point in the year, we're like 8-2 or 9-1 or whatever it may be. And you're looking at playoff positioning like, oh, I'm rooting against the Bills. I want the Chiefs to get the 1 seed, or rooting against the Ravens, all that. That's fun. Well, for the Chiefs right now, we can't really think too much about that. Right now, it's about let's win this week. And then after this game, we'll talk about the next game after that. I think that's kind of where our focus needs to be, and that's what we'll talk about here today.
Yeah, there's 30 other NFL teams in the league. They don't matter. It's just the Colts and Chiefs boil it down to a common denominator here for this game on Sunday. So before we dive into the Colts and Chiefs in this one-game season, let's go around the world.
Let's do it. Got a handful for you today. So
5?
We have 7, actually.
7, all right.
Yeah.
Harrison Butker, game-winning field goal.
I like it. We have a listener in El Paso, Texas.
Yes.
Yep. Near
Fort
Las
Bliss.
Cruces.
Fort Bliss, baby.
Mm-hmm. So Paul is in southern New Hampshire, near Nashua. You ever been to New Hampshire?
No, I've not, but it is on the bucket list. Nothing north of Boston, but yes, I'm taking my point guard wife, and we're going to go up there sometime.
Sure, it's beautiful. Paul has been a fan since he was
Vermont,
9 years
Maine,
old.
Too. Yep.
Got to go. Got to check it out. But he was 9 years old watching Super Bowl IV. Been a fan ever since. Shout out to you, Paul.
Had a kid.
So last week I mentioned I met a couple of Kingdom defenders at the current playoff game, but I wasn't able to write their names down. They reached out. So their names are Casey and Bree. Shout out to you both. It was great meeting you both. We're in kind of a tough stretch right now where the current lost like a heartbreaking game and essentially double overtime. The Chiefs losing a heartbreaker to the Broncos. We're going to get this thing back on track in all facets, everybody, but just stick with us. But shout out to Casey and Bree. Jen is in Colorado Springs. Been a fan since 1990. They obviously have to deal with a lot of Bronco fandom in their family, something I relate to with my in-laws. Ellie had a great time until the game was decided. But she was like high-fiving Chiefs fans. She yelled home of the Chiefs at the end of the anthem at the game. But I think Ellie's conversion, if it was like 99.9% there, we're 100% there now.
Yeah.
Because her and I are texting after the game, and she's like, man, I hate the Broncos.
That's it. That's 100%.
We've made it. We've made it to 100%. So anyway, Ellie had a good experience minus the result of the game. And
love is such a beautiful thing, man.
It is, yeah. But you know what? Here's the thing, is the important thing here is even though the Chiefs lost that game, Ellie was holding her head high in her Chiefs gear, walking out amongst all those Bronco fans, and they're screaming and yelling at her, and she's just kind of nodding her head. And, we'll just see where this thing goes. I'll just leave it at that. I heard from Alec in Brighton, United Kingdom. He said that sometime in the 50s, his aunt moved to Kansas City from London and settled in Platte City, Kind of interesting. He then first visited Kansas City in 2014 to kind of meet all these cousins that he had, right, that he had never met before. And over the years, he's become a big Chiefs fan. And the Chiefs are kind of like this glue for these two parts of this family. And it's a pretty special thing. So that was awesome. Great hearing from you, Alec. Ryan is listening from Gretna, Nebraska. Sure, you've been up
the
there.
Dragons. The Gretna Dragons.
I'm glad you mentioned that. He mentioned that last Friday was a playoff game between the Gretna Dragons and the Gretna East.
Ooh, new school. Don't know. New school. These new schools now, I got to work on them. That's a huge area of growth. So the Gretna East, I don't know. Is it got to be something?
It's with a G.
It's got. I don't know. The Gargoyles.
that would be great.
That'd be better.
So it's the Griffins.
That works.
Yeah, the Griffins. And Gretna East won.
Watonka High in Kansas City, Missouri Western. Yeah, there's Griffins.
55-34.
I love it. So if you're going to have a nickname, Griffins, like Olathe is all birds of prey. All the 5 schools are birds of prey.
I didn't know that.
And they all have to be blue.
Okay.
All different shades of blue, and they all have to be a bird of prey. So if you're the Gretna Dragons, why not have like the Gretna East Griffins?
Griffins, yeah.
Because you're kind of in that.
Like a mythical creature begins with a G. So, yeah, gargoyles would be good.
I like it. So
we'll work
cool.
on this, too. Yeah.
Gretna's a great area.
So I heard from Kendall and Karen. So Kendall went to Salina Central.
The Mustangs. They just had a gigantic win in the playoffs against the Salina South Cougars.
All right, big game. And then Karen went to Great Bend.
The Panthers, and they are loaded. It is also the alma mater of Megan McMullen. No relation to you. Yeah. And Rita Hunt. Lamar Hunt Jr.'s wife is a Great Bend Panther, and so is my daughter-in-law.
Okay.
Emily Bauer Holthus, Dr. Emily Bauer Holthus, the best OBGYN in the Chiefs Kingdom. All Great Bend Panthers.
I mean, I bet when you turn this podcast on.
Terry Delp of our scouting staff.
Yeah.
He's a Great Bend Panther.
It's a factory, apparently.
They also have the best player in Kansas this year. A kid named Ian Premer. He's going to Notre Dame.
Wow, what position?
Loaded. Whatever you want him to be.
It's like an athlete?
Yeah, he's an athlete.
Okay.
Tight end,
cool.
probably.
Well, there you go, Kendall and Karen. So they live in Andover, Kansas.
Yeah, there's 2 schools.
Okay.
Andover Trojans is the original one, but they're also a high-growth area like Gretna, Nebraska. And then you have the Jaguars of Andover Central.
Okay, very cool. Well, over the last 3 years, they've also followed along from the island of St. Martin. Is there a high school there?
I don't know if there is. I'm going to go visit it.
Yeah, right. They also travel all over the world, but have not missed a game, despite where they might be and how difficult it might be to catch the game. So anyway, shout out to both of you. Also, one quick announcement. So the Chiefs Kingdom Food Drive is now live. So it'll be for the Colts game. And if you've been coming to Chiefs games over the years, you know how this works. There will be like bins outside of the stadium gates. And if you want to bring non-perishable food items to donate to Harvesters and the 26 counties in Kansas and Missouri that Harvesters serves, you'll be helping some people out in our community. Also, if you're not coming to the game or not able to bring non-perishable food items, you can also donate online. And that's live right now. You can just do it right now if you want to. Check out Chiefs.com/food drive. Chiefs.com/food drive. All the information is right there. Kansas City is good at a lot of things. Winning football games is one of them, but also helping out those in our community is one of them as well. This helps thousands of people in our community that are hungry during the holiday season, and Chiefs Kingdom always comes out and helps them out. So let's do it once again.
Let's do it. I've got an international group, and I've got a domestic group that I want to mention. The international group are some of the folks that come to the Kingdom shows from Germany. I mentioned them.
Every week.
They'll come to a home game, and then they stay to go to the Kingdom show. Frank Koppner from Neumünster. Sasha Zentara from Siegburg, near Cologne. Nick Brinkschulte from Una, I think that's how you say it. Andy Brinkschulte from Menden. Christian Motor from Trier. And Timo Kasianalis from Köln, Germany. All Germans. Now, are you familiar or do you like the Yellowstone trilogy?
So I've actually never watched it.
Oh,
I know.
Once you start.
It's on the list.
No, once you start, 1883, 1923, Yellowstone. We have that in the Chiefs Kingdom.
Okay.
People don't even know it. You remember when you had somebody from Centralia, Kansas, home of the Panthers, which is John Riggins' alma mater, in the Pro Football Hall of Fame, right? Great Washington, the former nickname. And then New York Jets, played at the University of Kansas. That's John Riggins Street is what the stadium's on, and they're a football power. Great. But it's really Corning, Kansas, which is a ways out of Centralia, but that's the inertia for all of Centralia's success is Corning.
Okay.
In Corning is the closest thing we have to the Dutton family.
Okay. They're the main characters, right?
They're the main characters. Yeah. You go through all the generations, and it's the Talley boys. Now, Dennis Talley in Corning he's the patriarch. But these are like, I'm mixing my comparisons here. It's the Earp brothers. Imagine these boys walking down the street with their big leather coats on, right? Holding a shotgun, and maybe, they got 2 sidearms, headed to the OK Corral to meet the Ike Clanton. That's the Talley boys.
Okay.
The reason I mention them is they are die-hard Chiefs fans, all of them.
Wow, all right.
And I had to see them, though, at the University of Kansas Medical Center, because one of the Talley boys, I think he had a issue health-wise. He's going to be great. Lots of prayers. But anyway, I saw the Talley boys again, and the fact that I think Ike Clanton probably shot Wade in the pool hall. That's what happened I'm mixing Tombstone with Yellowstone. But the Talley boys are a real deal. There's like one dude that lives in that whole area that likes the Broncos. His name is Matt.
Oh, no.
Yeah. And he's having a parade after they won the game, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So hanging a banner. He and the Bills fan that lives. Anyway,
Yes.
The point is the Talley boys. We have Yellowstone right in the Chiefs Kingdom. We have the Dutton family. It's the Talley family. And if you see the Talley boys walking down the street headed toward the OK Corral, you know something's going to happen.
Okay. Want to clear out.
Clear out.
Yeah.
All right, they're awesome. Incredible family. Hannah is the daughter. She's as tough as all of them. Anyway, I'm just telling you, they're a real deal, and they're huge Chiefs fans, and they're kingdom defenders.
Let's go.
They're part of defending the kingdom. They watch all these episodes. All right, way to go, Talley boys. We've got to have you against the Colts. We need their toughness.
Yes.
Jonathan Taylor is unreal. He's putting up unreal numbers. He just had a gigantic game where almost 290 scrimmage yards and 3 touchdowns. Only 3 other people have done it in the history of the National Football League. What he did against Atlanta in their game as overseas was phenomenal. But he's been doing it now for a while. People forget he led the NFL in rushing in 2021. He had an 1,800-yard rushing season. Now you look at him all-purpose yards right now. I mean, James Cook of the Bills, but Jonathan Taylor's set apart right now among running backs in this league.
He's a legitimate MVP candidate based on how he's playing this year. Their offense is crazy.
Yes,
I mean, their numbers are nuts. It's the number 1 scoring offense in the NFL. They're averaging 32 points per game. They've scored at least 30 points 7 times this year. Did some research on that. That's the most of any team in the NFL and tied for the most for any team through 10 games since 2018 when the Chiefs did it 8 times back in 2018. They're doing it a bit of a different way than the Chiefs did back in 2018, but it's still working for them. These guys have the lowest 3-and-out percentage in the league, 3rd highest red zone touchdown percentage in the NFL. They lead the league in successful play rate, and they have the 2nd fewest negative plays in the league. So they're staying ahead of the chains. They're running the ball really effectively. You talked about Taylor, how good he's been. He has 28 runs of double-digit yardage. That ranks 2nd in the NFL. 48 forced missed tackles, 2nd in the NFL. And his 844 yards after contact lead the NFL by nearly 200 yards. So there's a lot to talk about with this Colts team. And Daniel Jones, who we'll talk about, has played very well. But it all begins with stopping the engine. And the engine is Jonathan Taylor. If you want to feel better about this is actually the 3rd time this year the Chiefs will face a team that comes in as the number 1 scoring offense in the NFL. Baltimore, way back in Week 4, was the number 1 scoring offense in the NFL. Chiefs held them to only 20 points. And then Detroit, a few weeks ago, was the number 1 scoring offense in the NFL. I think the Chiefs held them to 19 points, 17 points, something like that, under 20 points. So the Chiefs have been up for these games, got to be up for this one because this Colts offense is no joke.
This will be the toughest of those 3 challenges. Maybe it just was the most recent. You know a stat that floored me when I looked at the Colts stats? They are number 1 in quick strike drives.
Yeah. Different kind of way, though.
Different way to do it. But
Yeah.
they'll score big touchdowns in quick strike. These aren't – you'd think with Jonathan Taylor, these are 17-play.
Grinded out,
85.
Yeah.
Not so much. And there's more to this team than Jonathan Taylor. We're going to get into that. But the Chiefs need toughness in this game. They need to have – he's not Jonathan Taylor, but I'm going to tell you what he is. He is as tough as nails. And right now, we wouldn't have made the Super Bowl last year without him. We wouldn't have won the AFC Championship last year without him, and we wouldn't have the 5 wins this year without him. It's Kareem Hunt, and he is more valuable to this team than maybe people realize. All right, with a big game coming up against the Colts, the guy that does all the dirty work of what's required, and he does it well, Kareem Hunt. What about that role? Because I love it the way you've embraced it. It's like, what do y'all need? I'll give it to you better than you thought you needed.
I mean, it's one of those things that, you got to get those, dirty yards. And I feel like, I'm one of those guys who can, find a little crease, anything to, make the most out the play to keep our offense on the field. So, that's what I take pride in doing.
Kareem, you've played a lot of football in your career, been a part of a lot of locker rooms and a lot of big wins. What about this locker room gives you confidence you guys can attack the final 7 games of the season and win these games?
Like I said, we have a bunch of guys who've played a lot of football. We have guys who are great leaders, and we've played in a lot of big games. So I feel like we just got to take it one play at a time, one game at a time, and just, be ourselves.
It seems like the more physical the game, the more you love it. What about, hey, you can't make it too hard for you?
No, definitely not. And that's one thing I like to, bring to the table, and, physicality and wearing the defense out and, making good blocks so Pat can get the ball off and, those other guys can make plays.
I think it's so cool that you've taken advantage of your opportunity here the second time around. If I told you in early September of last year that right now you'd be leading the Chiefs in total touchdowns and rushing yards and all this, I mean, what would you say?
I mean, I probably wouldn't believe it, but it's just crazy how things work out. And, I like to make the most of every opportunity I get, and being back here is another opportunity, so I get to make the most of it.
Quick question about the Colts, opponent specific. This defense may be a little bit underrated. What are you guys seeing there?
Oh, they have a good front seven, man. They got, guys who played a lot of football there, and right now they're playing as a team. They're doing a great job, man, of winning football games.
It's going to be noon at the stadium on a Sunday. It's going to be like 55 degrees, like a nice fall day. Is it the perfect kind of day to run the football, do you think?
Oh, that's a perfect type of day. Any day to run the football is the perfect day for me. So,
how many carries you want?
As many as it takes to get the win. So that's the only thing I care about is wins and losses.
Yes, sir.
And that is why this guy is so valuable to this team. Kareem Hunt's value to this team, I think, is understated because you don't have the big explosive splash plays that he had in 2017 and 18, but you get winning plays from Kareem Hunt.
In a lot of ways, I think he saved the season last year. We had so many injuries early on last year. We didn't have Isaiah for like 10 games. Lost Rasheed in week 4. Didn't have Hollywood Brown for basically the entire season. And Kareem comes in off the street and leads this team, I think, in scrimmage yards, in scrimmage touchdowns, and rushing yards, like in all these categories. And right now, he leads the Chiefs in total touches, in scrimmage touchdowns, and obviously rushing yards. I can't really imagine where we'd be without Kareem over the last year, and hopefully a big game coming up for him against the Colts.
Yeah, the Colts have more than Jonathan Taylor. And you can get caught up in Jonathan Taylor, and it'd be easy to do so, just like Pat or Kels on our team. But they're number 3 in net passing yards. You and I would have won a lot of bets at the beginning of the year if we go, hey, you think the Colts would be, with Daniel Jones at quarterback, would be number 3 in net passing yards in the league? This is a team, and their offensive line, I've got to mention them. They brought in 2 young guys this year. They've had a really good offensive line. But then you look at Smith, who's a right tackle on this team from Olathe South. He's an Olathe South Falcon. And last year was very open about some mental health issues he was dealing with, but he fought through it. And then you look at Nelson, the left guard. This is an elite offensive line, even with the 2 younger guys that they brought in. And then a guy, we study the draft. You and I study the draft. Now, we're cramming for the test, right?
We have like a couple of weeks to learn.
And our personnel staff that's what they do all year long. Our college personnel staff and pro personnel, all working on it. Matt and I basically cram for the test. But one guy that caught our attention that I think has made all the difference in this team is Tyler Warren, the tight end.
Yeah.
Okay, Travis Kelce. Let's just put this in perspective. Travis Kelce has 50 catches for 631 yards. Rookie, Tyler Warren has 50 catches, 617 yards. Tyler Warren has had the exact season to this point that Kelce has. And so Tyler Warren, to me, and you can throw in Alec Pierce, you can throw in Michael Pittman Jr., there's just more to this team than Jonathan Taylor.
They're so physical. And, Chris Ballard, their GM, obviously used to be here at the Chiefs years ago. And
Great
I think,
dude.
yeah, and I think his MO throughout his time in Indianapolis, whether they were winning a lot of games or not, is we are going to be tough and physical.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to build our team through the offensive and defensive lines. They've certainly done that. But I think that toughness kind of extends to their skill position guys. Obviously Taylor, but also, Michael Pittman and Alec Pierce, like two guys who are well over 6'2". They're big, strong, physical. And if they're going to go up for a ball, you have to fight them for it because they're probably going to come down with it. And Tyler Warren is an extension of that. There was a play in that game they played against the Falcons overseas where I can't remember the exact situation, but it was kind of like crunch time for the Colts. It might have been like a 4th down or something. And Jones just kind of tossed it over to Warren, who had a defender all over him. And Warren just went up there and got it. And the defender was hanging on to him. And Warren is so strong. He's just hanging on to the football. Colts later go on to win that game. These guys are so strong and physical really throughout their entire roster. We have to match that on Sunday. And Warren is one of those guys. You can't let him beat you because I think he leads this team in receiving yards, huge red zone weapon, really good player, going to be a good player for a long time. We got to find a way to contain that production on Sunday.
Yeah, I'm going to match your match, but I'm going to raise you to an exceed. I think the Chiefs will lose if they try to match the physicality of the Colts. They have to exceed it in some way, shape, or form. They've got to exceed it against this team. You talk about 4th down. They're 17-21 on 4th down.
Yeah.
We're 16-21. We're pretty good. They're 17-21 on 4th down. Now, before we get to Ari, who's doing his spy mission around the West, this defense of the Colts is underrated. And they have impact players now at all 3 levels. The trade to get Sauce Gardner was looked at like, whoa, Chris Ballard, you just gave up a lot to get Sauce Gardner. Well, he's there, whether the trade was expensive or not. But a guy on this team that I really respect is Zaire Franklin, the linebacker. In the last 2 3/4 years, taking their 10 games this year, he has 410 tackles, 7 sacks, 7 forced fumbles, 2 interceptions. This guy is a Nick Bolton. He will make every play possible. I think Franklin is an underrated defensive player in this league.
Really good player. They don't have DeForest Buckner, which is a big deal. Really good defensive tackle in the middle of their defense. I believe he's on IR right now, so that's a big deal not having him. But they have playmakers everywhere. You mentioned getting Sauce Gardner. And the man calling the plays is Lou Anarumo. We've had a lot of battles against Lou Anarumo, former Bengals defensive coordinator. So we know all about this guy. It's kind of funny when he got let go from Cincinnati. I'm like, all right, we don't have to worry about that guy anymore. Well, now here he is in Indianapolis on one of the best teams in the AFC. So got to be ready for him. It's interesting, though. Overall, the numbers might be a bit skewed because these guys just obliterated the Dolphins, Raiders, and the Titans twice. And despite that, it's still the 27th ranked 3rd down defense and 24th ranked red zone defense. They allowed about over 400 yards to the Rams, Chargers, and Cardinals. They're still really good, though. I mean, don't take this wrong. I mean, they rank 4th in the NFL in quarterback pressures, and they're 7th in takeaways. Here's the thing for the Chiefs in this game. This Colts defense is good. If the Chiefs have opportunities, they have to seize them. So we talked all about pregame, postgame, during the Broncos game, that missed opportunities have been the theme of the season so far in the losses. And we saw that against the Broncos, right? I mean, overall, the Chiefs go 1 for 4 in the red zone against Denver. I mean, if you convert just one more of those into touchdowns, the Chiefs win that game. But also the end of the game, the multiple sequences where the Chiefs had the ball and the lead, when the Chiefs had the ball in a tie game with plenty of time to go down and tie it or take the lead, I mean. And then also having the Broncos in 3rd and 15 deep in their own side of the field, you have a chance to get off the field and give the ball back to Patrick Mahomes. Well, the Chiefs didn't come up big in those situations like they normally do. If the Chiefs have opportunities in this game, which they will, they have to seize them. And if they do, I like their chances. But you can't let a team like the Colts, who's playing really good football right now, have multiple chances like we did against Denver.
Yeah, they don't have Buckner, but they do have Grover Stewart.
Yeah.
Grover Stewart's a stud. And the other thing they've done defensively, the numbers aren't as nice as their offensive numbers. They have 14 takeaways.
Yeah.
And they're +2. They've got 12 giveaways, but 14 takeaways. These guys, and Kwity Paye is a good player. Remember studying him in the draft. But our spy is out there. He roams the West Coast, and you won't even know he's there. He just slinks in and out of places. Let's check in with our guy on the West. Here's Ari Wolfe.
Hello to everyone, and welcome to Out West with Ari Wolfe. Excited for my chat this week with Matt McMullen. And Matt, The AFC West looks different week after week after week. Right now, the Broncos clearly now in front at 9-2. They come away with a 3-point win against the Chiefs. The Chargers had a really, really bad loss against Jacksonville. They got blown out. The Raiders get blown out on Monday Night Football. But let's start at the top because we focus on the AFC West. The Broncos, it really was a statement win for them. This game could have gone either way. Bo Nix is such an interesting story at quarterback because he's booed in that game at home in the first half by his own fans. Yet if you look at the numbers at the end of the game, he throws for 295 yards and doesn't turn the ball over. Bo Nix in some ways reminds me a little bit of Jalen Hurts. People sort of just love to hate him no matter how much his team wins. Is Bo Nix a guy do you think eventually is going to be in the upper echelon of quarterbacks, or is he benefiting from the fact that they have a strong overall team and one of the best defenses in football?
Yeah, I think that's a tough question to answer. And I think the grade on him is probably incomplete right now. But you got to give him credit that he's making plays when he needs to. And going into the game against the Broncos, what Mitch and I kept talking about is these guys, for whatever reason, are like the best in the NFL this year in the fourth quarter. They have the best yardage margin in the fourth quarter. They have the best point margin in the fourth quarter. Knicks went into the Chiefs-Broncos game with the most total touchdowns and first downs of any quarterback in the fourth quarter. So if you have an opportunity to seize this game and not let it come down to the final drive, you got to do it. Unfortunately, That's exactly what happened. It came down to the final drive. The Chiefs missed a bunch of opportunities to put this game away, and Nix did what he has done all year, and he went down and made some great throws on 3rd and 15, hitting Cortland Sutton, and then the 32-yard pass to Troy Franklin down the sideline. I mean, those are great throws in a big moment, and I have to give him credit for it. Tough one, right? So I don't think I can come on this podcast today and criticize him when he made those throws that he did. So I'll give him the credit. We'll see where his career goes. But making plays like that in those big moments, that's what being a great quarterback is all about. And again, he made sure he did that in those big moments.
So they're heading into the bye week. So are the Chargers. The Chargers, it was the worst loss in the Harbaugh era. Granted, it's only been a year and a half, but to lose like that, and we've talked about, that trip from the West Coast to the East Coast and playing in the early time slot is challenging. But the Chargers were really flat. I mean, Herbert threw for 81 yards in the game. I realized they pulled him pretty early in the second half, but it's not a good sign for the Chargers. They're heading into their bye week feeling the exact opposite of the Broncos. I think the Chargers are now vulnerable down the stretch. But I don't want to read too much into one game, right? Like you can just have a bad day at the office. What was your takeaway? I know you were busy working, but once you've had a chance to, look at the highlights, analyze what happened, what really went wrong for the Chargers against the Jaguars?
It's funny with games like this. I'm on the field getting ready for my pregame show, and at Mile High, for example, on their big board, they're just showing kind of like red zone, basically. So I'm like jumping in and out of the Chargers-Jags game, and like we talked about last week, I thought the Chargers were going to handle the Jags in that game, and it couldn't have been more opposite. I'm shocked by this, to see the Jags absolutely roll the Chargers, and the numbers are even crazier. You talked about Herbert's passing yards, but the Chargers had 135 yards of offense and 8 first downs. Now, the Jags defense has played pretty well this year, but I mean, that's thorough and complete domination. And the Jags went into that game with the fewest sacks in the NFL. We kind of wondered with the Chargers tackle situation, something has to give there. Like, are the Jags going to be all over Herbert the entire game? And they kind of were. I mean, they blitzed just 2 times and still got pressure 9 times on 23 dropbacks. So almost half of his dropbacks, they were creating pressure despite not blitzing. As we know, that's a recipe for absolute disaster for an offense. And that's what happened. So yeah, weird situation for the Chargers. Kind of never really got their game plan going. So we'll see, and we'll talk a little bit later. If we're looking kind of at the wild card race right now, the game against the Chargers in a few weeks is a big one. But yeah, odd game there for the Chargers and the Jags. 2 teams going in different directions, I think.
I'm not going to spend a lot of time on the Raiders because I want to go deep into the AFC wildcard race. But the Raiders last night seemed like business as usual. Dallas comes in there. Dak Prescott looks like a Pro Bowl quarterback. Both receivers, despite the fact that they didn't play in the opening series, which we didn't get a ton of detail on after the game. Something internally was wrong that you don't have CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens on the field. But look, those guys shined in the game. The Raiders, I'm curious whether or not Pete Carroll is going to even get another year, or whether they're placing the blame that they need a franchise quarterback. But I feel like every week when we talk about the Raiders, they're just a mess. Now, look, they did a couple things good defensively early, but man, this is a team right now that doesn't have a lot of positive signs for the future.
Can you believe the Raiders beat the Patriots at Gillette in week 1?
Right?
This is why
What?
football is so crazy,
Yeah.
and why after like week 1 and week 2, you can never come to any major conclusions, because after the week 1, we were like, man, the Raiders, they might have
They're
something
legit.
this year. Yeah. And I
Yeah.
mean, just hasn't been the case. Their defense has really struggled. You trade Jacoby Myers, who is one of your best offensive weapons, and kind of makes an offense that was already struggling even worse. These defenses are keying in on Brock Bowers, and they can never get the running game going because they don't have time to run the ball because their defense is struggling. Just a recipe for disaster for the Raiders, and kind of that sort of year for them.
Yeah, and it's odd with Geno. He really, when he found his best football in Seattle, it was because he wasn't turning the football over. And now he has more interceptions than touchdowns. Usually guys with that kind of track record now through 10 games go straight to the bench. So I realize Carroll and Geno have a deep relationship, but they gotta figure something out. All right, let's move on to what were the best games from last week. I thought there were two. The Rams and the Seahawks, and the Bears and the Vikings for different reasons. So the Rams jump all over the Seahawks, right? They're up 14-3. Stafford throws 2 early touchdown passes. But when you really dig into the game, Seattle actually played great despite the fact their quarterback threw 4 picks. They have a chance to win the game on, look, a 61-yard field goal is not a 61-yard field goal in 1985. This is the new world we're living in. Like, a 61-yard field goal like is manageable. They had a chance. Seattle's defense, I think, is legit. Stafford really, and the Rams offense did very little. They had a couple of short fields. They got those points early. They're going to play again in Seattle, but that now looks like it's a 2-team race in the NFC West. What was your takeaway from the Seahawks and the Rams?
Yeah, well, this is another one that I'm trying to catch up on after the fact. But I mean, what a matchup between, I mean, probably the two best teams in the NFC right now. I get Philadelphia has the record, but the way those two teams have been playing this year, going into it as both top 5 and scoring offense and defense. And I think we saw that in the game. I think my major takeaway from this game, though, is Sam Darnold. If he's going to completely rewrite the script about him, I think he has to play well in these big games. And yeah, they hung in there despite the 4 interceptions, but Darnold has been so good this year, like so good. And in some primetime games looked really, really good. Completely different from the guy that got jettisoned out of New York, right? But he has to play well in these sorts of games. And you threw 4 interceptions. You just can't do that against a division opponent that you're kind of competing with to get that top seed in the NFC. So I think that's my takeaway. Is I'm curious in a few weeks when they play again, Sam Darnold has to be the Sam Darnold he was all year and not the player he was on Sunday.
Yeah, it does seem like the bigger the game for Darnold, it's been real shaky. I mean, you look back at the end of his season last year, right? And they're on top of the world. They're feeling great. And his last 2 games went so poorly in Minnesota. So speaking of the Vikings, it was kind of a wild NFC North division game. The Bears lead 16-3. You're thinking, okay, this is not that interesting of a game. But then, wow, McCarthy and the Vikings come all the way back with 50 seconds left. They take a 1-point lead, but then they give up the huge kickoff return. And in the end, Santos kicks the game-winning field goal. They are now 7-3. And look, this is wild. Like, they're in the mix to win the NFC North. I don't think anybody had. They started 0-2. And I wouldn't say that they're winning these games because Caleb Williams is suddenly a star. I think Caleb Williams is better than he's been. But wow. The Bears at 7-3, they have had a bunch of tight games, and it was a spectacular ending to that one.
I'm pulling up the Bears schedule right now just to look at it. It's crazy they're 7-3. And actually this morning, when I was thinking about what we were going to talk about today, I was thinking about the Bears, and I looked up the standings, and I'm like, they're 7-3? I just kind of had no idea. I mean, I know they've been winning some games, but still 7-3, particularly, like you said, after starting 0-2. The funniest part of this is their one loss during this whole stretch since starting 0-2 was to the Ravens, but it was the Tyler Huntley Ravens.
Yeah.
It wasn't like it was Lamar. So kind of inexplicable there. I mean, the Ravens were totally at the brink at that point. I think they're 1-5, and they beat the Bears. That's the Bears' only loss in this entire stretch. They beat the Bengals in that crazy game, 47-42. They beat the Giants 24-20. Beat the Commanders 25-24 in that game when Daniels turned the ball over late.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, they're playing good football. And I was someone that thought Ben Johnson was going to be a success, like not just because of the X's and O's, but he seemed like a kind of like a culture builder kind of guy. And I'll give him
Right.
credit. After a tough start, they figured it out, especially considering they lost to the Lions 52-21 to drop to 0-2. I'm sure
Right.
vibes weren't great at Hallis Hall, but now they've won 7 of 8 playing good football. That's a fun division to watch. I'm curious how it all plays out.
And it's wild. You think about nobody expected the Chiefs at this point in the year to be on the outside of the playoff picture. How about the Detroit Lions? If the playoffs started today, would not be in the playoffs. That is a staggering thought. All right. So next week, AFC West, it's a light week because you've got the Broncos and Chargers are off. So the big game is obviously the Colts versus the Chiefs. I don't think I'm a rocket scientist here telling you getting pressure on Daniel Jones is everything. What the Steelers were able to do to the Colts has got to be the recipe for the Chiefs to have success slowing down this really good offense. Which brings me to Chris Jones. There were moments against Denver where I thought, okay, like that's the dominant Chris Jones, because when you think about the legacy of this particular dynasty, and it harkens back to, remember during the preseason, before our first preseason game, in the same meeting room, we had Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, and Chris Jones. And I thought we got 4 first ballot Hall of Famers. Chris Jones, to me, needs to play like a first ballot Hall of Famer because he just wrecks everything. And I granted he has a lot of double teams. Sometimes the stats aren't there and other guys are getting it. But to me, he is still the alpha male of the defense. And if they want to take down Daniel Jones and the Colts, boy, I'd love to see the best game of the season for Chris Jones this weekend.
Yeah, I'm with you. One thing that Mitch and I have been talking about all week and on the podcast today is about how the Colts are so physical and powerful and strong, right? Like they want to be the most physical team on the field. The Chiefs can't just match that physicality, they need to exceed it. And
Yeah.
that manifests itself in a lot of ways, but one of them is trying to get pressure with the defensive front without blitzing. And I think if you look back at the Broncos game, that's one of the areas we struggled is in order to get pressure on Nix, we kind of had to manufacture that pressure. And on the 3rd and 15 at the end of the game, couldn't get pressure on him. Sutton came open. I'm with you. You got to put pressure on Daniel Jones. It begins with stopping the run, though. And that's something that Mitch and I have talked about ad nauseum. I mean, this is obvious. Jonathan Taylor having an incredible season.
So
you have to kill that engine, right? And he's going to get his yards here and there, but you can't let him have one of these monster days. Force him to throw the football and get pressure, because if you look at like Pro Football Focus numbers, and take it for what you will, but if you do, Jones, when he has the ball out of his hands in less than 2.5 seconds, one of the best in the league this year. When he hangs onto the football for longer than 2.5 seconds, his numbers go way down. For the Chiefs in this game, get that quick pressure on him. Don't let him go to his first read, right? And that's how you confuse him and create pressure and create problems. A lot easier said than done against this great offensive line, but yeah, that's the key on Sunday.
And then just a quick note on the other AFC West game. You've got the Browns and the Raiders. I think at this point in the season, if you have this bad a record, aren't you both teams almost want to lose to improve your draft pick? Nevertheless, the most interesting thing to me is Shedeur Sanders will get the start. I did watch the second half of the Ravens-Browns game. Don't ask me why. I'm just a football junkie. Sanders looked overwhelmed. Now, granted, he'll have a full week of practice, but I think that there will be a lot of interest in this game just because that Sanders brand, that it's Deion's son, his first start. I think it's going to have a bigger viewership than you normally have for two teams that only have a couple of wins. And I'm curious, are you interested at all in seeing how Sanders does this weekend?
Yeah, because I'm like you. I just like football. And of course, that's been like a storyline for months and months now. Yeah, I'm curious to see how he looks. I was going back and watching the highlights from when he got in the game against Baltimore last week. Curious to see how he does when he has like a full week to prepare, has the game plan built around him, see how he handles it. He's obviously super talented. I mean, I'd stay up and watch his games at Colorado when they're at like 12:30 at night here in Kansas City. So yeah, I'm fascinated. A lot more intrigue in this game considering who's playing each other than there normally would be, considering the records. But yeah, we'll see how he does.
All right. Now we're sort of adding a new component to Out West, and that is looking at the AFC wild card and looking at those teams and who they're playing, because, it is a race now to secure one of those 3 wild card spots. So let's start right now. Buffalo is at 7-3. Now, look, they're only a game behind the Patriots. They play each other again, but I do think, whichever one doesn't win the division is going to get in. So if you assume that Buffalo is in, then you've got the Chargers, Jacksonville, Houston, and Kansas City to me are the 4 teams that are vying for the other 2 berths. Um, Buffalo is playing Houston next week. Now, normally I would think I got to root against Buffalo. We got to get KC home field advantage. Well, we're at a different point in a different season. It actually seems to me this week coming up, we're rooting for the Bills at the Texans because we want to bury the Texans to get them out of the wild card race. I'm not crazy, right? That we're rooting for the Bills next week.
No, I think you're right. I mean, it feels sacrilegious.
Right?
What you just said, I said at the beginning of the podcast with Mitch that normally this time of year, we're talking all about like positioning for like the top seed, trying to get the bye. I mean, the reality of this season is that the number one seed is far away, right? We just need to make sure we get in the dance. So yeah, as crazy as it sounds, I think I want the Bills to win this game against the Texans. Because the Texans, to their credit, have won 3 of 4 games, 2 of which without C.J. Stroud, and it sounds like he's not going to play in this game either. But Davis Mills has played pretty good, at least to keep them in it. Ugly game against Tennessee, but they won, and you shouldn't apologize for winning. And they still have the number 1 scoring defense in the NFL. Now, Buffalo has been so up and down. You truly never know what you're going to get. I mean, against the Bucs last week, at least offensively, they were phenomenal, just matching the Bucs score for score. Allen was incredible. I think he had like 6 total touchdowns. And against us, they were great. But then against the Falcons earlier this year, and certainly against the Dolphins, just like a completely different team. So what team shows up here in this game? We'll find out. But yeah, as much as it pains me to say, I think we want the Bills to win this game, unfortunately.
That's not something either of us have said in the last 5 or 6 years. We're rooting for the Bills in week 12.
Yeah.
All right. Next up, Jacksonville is 6-4, and I went through the rest of their schedule, and I have them with, again, I don't have a crystal ball, but I have them finishing, if things go well for them, at 10-7. They still have the Colts at home, and they still have to go to Indy, right? So the Jacksonville thing, it could be worse than 10-7. I gave them a split. I just gave them winning at home and them losing at Indianapolis. But Jacksonville, coming off one of their best performances of the season, they've got to be feeling pretty bullish down there. I mean, Trevor Lawrence hasn't played great. The defense has been better than we expected. They've caused lots of turnovers. So Jacksonville is a team coming up this week. They've got at Arizona, then at Tennessee. Those are very winnable road games. Where do you stand right now on the Jaguars in the AFC wildcard picture?
Yeah, I mean, speaking of hot and cold, the Jags are tough to figure out because the way they played against us and the way they played against the Chargers last week, for sure. I mean, that looks like a really good team, right? But then they've also had struggles this year. They lost to the Rams 35-7, barely beat the Raiders, they allowed 29 points to the Raiders just a couple weeks ago. And then that crazy game against the Texans a few weeks ago where they had a sizable lead late in the fourth quarter and allowed it to go away. So I don't really know what team will get week to week with the Jags. Now, considering the current situation, I hope they lose a bunch of these games. And with Arizona, I'm assuming it'll still be Jacoby Brissett at quarterback, right? So Brissett, despite losing last week, still had a pretty good game. We'll see if maybe they put a more complete game together here against the Jags. It would be great for the Chiefs situation if the Jags, coming off a big win over the Chargers at home, go across the country and lay an egg against the Cardinals. We'll see. The Cardinals, I feel like, are one of those teams that, even though their record doesn't show it, they can get hot from time to time. We'll see it. But yeah, I mean, looking at the schedule, like you said, 2 more games against the Colts for the Jags, and they have to play the Broncos this year on the road. That'll be tough. So we'll see. But to me, the Jags are that main team that we're watching right now. And chatting with Mitch, the division race is not over. I mean, the Chiefs, 3 games back in the loss column, but you still play the Broncos again. If the Chiefs take care of their business and the Broncos maybe get a little comfortable with their situation, the division is still very much in play. But we have to be realistic here and talk about the wild card as well. Both routes are possible. And I think for the Chiefs in the wild card race, Jacksonville is the one team I'm watching because they have that tiebreaker over us. We need them to lose some games.
Yeah. All right. So next up, the Chargers. So they're coming off again, just the worst performance in the Harbaugh era. They're 7-4. I have them finishing at 10-7. Again, so you've got the Raiders at home. You expect them to win in that. I think they probably lose to the Eagles at home. They can't protect, and that Eagles defensive line looks better than it has all year. Jalen Phillips has been a nice add for them. They still have to go to Kansas City. They have to go to Dallas, and they have to go to Denver. So I've got the Chargers finishing at 10-7. So, the tiebreaker between the Chargers and the Chiefs, it could end up being there are 3 teams at 10-7. Then it would go to record we talked about offline yesterday. record in the AFC. There's still a lot of AFC games to be played, so I think we don't need to dig too deep into that. But I do think that there's a chance that those three teams could end up at 10-7, and then obviously the tiebreakers come into play. But I want to put a summary on this. Obviously, if the Chiefs win their next 7, they're in. If they go 6-1, they're in. But 5-2 is not a guarantee, and so that's pretty. 5-2 is something you'd normally expect from them. When you're 5-5, 5-2 sounds like, look, this team's got to really turn it up a notch. Do I trust Andy Reid? 100%. Do I trust Patrick Mahomes, the whole organization? But it's going to be fascinating to see how they deal with this, because it's going to be a fight down to the final week of the season for the wild card. Hopefully the Chiefs won't be sweating it, but whoever gets that last wild card spot, it's going to be a dogfight in the AFC. Now, I'll just briefly mention Houston is right there at 5-5. I've got them finishing at 7-10. They actually have a pretty tough schedule the rest of the way. The best game coming up this week, I think, besides the Colts and the Chiefs, I think the Steelers versus the Bears is interesting. Now, we know Aaron Rodgers got the injury to his non-throwing hand. No decision has been made. Obviously, if he doesn't play, it kind of changes things. But, we were just talking about the Bears, 7-3, finding ways to win. The Steelers really needed a win last week against Cincinnati. I think the Steelers and the Bears could be fun. Any inkling of how you think that one might work out this weekend?
Yeah, well, with the Steelers, I mean, they have to be looking in the rearview mirror now, and the Ravens are right there. Kind of like how we all thought this might play out after the Ravens won that game in Chicago. Kind of felt like they saved their season. Then Lamar Jackson came back. They have not lost since. Now, they actually have the same record as the Chiefs, which is hard to believe considering where these two teams were just a few weeks ago. The good news is the Chiefs actually have the tiebreaker over the Ravens because of the head-to-head win. That's good. The Ravens making the playoffs as a wild card team, just because of how the tiebreakers have worked out, would be tough. But they could win that division. And actually, I think as part of this conversation with the wild card and kind of watching what teams are right there with the Chiefs, I think you almost want the Steelers to start losing some games and just concede the AFC North to the Ravens. And the Steelers might fall out of it entirely, which is pretty crazy. But
we'll think back to what the Steelers did. We talked about this last week. Like Russell Wilson, they got up to an 8-3 start and didn't make the playoffs. So, this could be the same thing over again. The Steelers going in the wrong direction. Again, they got a reprieve last week, but, if Aaron Rodgers can't play, I don't think that, Steelers Nation has a ton of confidence in Mason Rudolph. I think he's a gamer. But yeah, I think it'll be interesting. I do think that in the AFC, there's going to be a lot of Bears fans this weekend, right? They're going to be rooting against the Steelers for sure.
Well, have you looked at the Steelers schedule? I just pulled it up. So the Steelers play.
They still got the Ravens twice.
Yeah, they play the Bears this weekend. Then they play the Bills, then the Ravens, then the Dolphins, and take the Dolphins for what you think they are.
Yeah, but the Dolphins are trending in the right direction right now, so that might not be as easy a game, right?
Then after that, they go on the road to Detroit, who at that point will likely be playing for their playoff lives. But Detroit is way better, I think, than their record indicates. Yeah. Then Cleveland on the road, division game with Myles Garrett, who will have 55 sacks at that point. And then they finish the year with the Ravens. The Steelers might be in some trouble here just looking at their schedule. This is tough.
I mean, the Steelers could finish under 500, right? 8-9, you wouldn't be that shocked, right? Just given how tough the schedule is. So it's going to be a compelling race in the AFC. And again, we're not saying that the division title is not still an option. You go 7-0 and the Broncos slip up a little bit. And look, I mean, the Chiefs really only lost one regular season game last year, right? The last game against Denver, you're not playing your starters. So winning 7 in a row for this bunch is not unrealistic. All right, Matt, to my final thought, and this is really a message to the kingdom, which is this standard that has been set by the Chiefs is a standard that we've never seen before in the National Football League. What this dynasty has done has brought incredible joy, right? It's brought the most fun in the history of the franchise. But what it also does is create a level of expectation, which I think sometimes can suck the fun out of football, right? For most people, through most of their lives, you've been a Chiefs fan for 50 years, right? There have been more lows than there have been highs. But now you sort of expect every Sunday that Patrick Mahomes is going to look like the GOAT and that they're going to win comfortably every week. And what I'm almost begging all of you, and I have to do it now too, is enjoy the process. Enjoy watching football. Enjoy that this Chiefs team has arguably one of the greatest coaches of all time, may go down as the greatest quarterback of all time, the greatest tight end ever play, and one of the best defensive tackles we'll ever see play in the National Football League. So literally, I beg of you, enjoy this process. They're going to figure it out. They're going to get in the postseason. And one thing I can promise you is nobody wants to play Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs in the playoffs. So everyone enjoy the process. Take those expectations down a hair. Find a way to gut out some wins. Get in the playoffs. And I love the Chiefs' chances. On to you, Matt.
You fire me up. You know that? You get me excited. I'm fired up to attack this thing. My final thought's kind of a two-parter. I sort of talked about this with Mitch a little bit earlier already, but I'll add this part with you. I've had so much fun doing this like football and family thing. Like the Bills game, my parents were front row at Highmark Stadium, and then my wife was at the Broncos game with her family a few days ago. Unfortunately, both losses. Maybe I should stop bringing family members to these road games is what I'm taking away from this. But the part that I already told Mitch, but I'll mention it to you because you'll love this, is Ellie was like 99.9% Chiefs fan at this point, right? I've converted her fully from being someone that grew up in Colorado going to Broncos games to fully converting to being a Chiefs fan. But I think the game on Sunday was the final point for her where she is now 100% on board because, you know, Chiefs lose, bummed out. Like I'm just kind of sitting, getting my thoughts together before we did Chiefs Rewind. And she texts me, man, I hate the Broncos. And I'm like, we have truly come full circle.
That's it. There it is.
When I first met her, like she was giving me a hard time for being a Chiefs fan. And she was talking about Super Bowl 50. This is like 9 years ago, you know? And now she's texting me, man, I hate the Broncos. And she's holding their head up high, walking out of Mile High with a Chiefs gear on. And people are chirping at her and she's giving them looks, you know, like I love it. So, and on a night where not a lot went right for the Chiefs in terms of the result, at least I know my wife is now fully on board. She was tested and she passed the test.
That's awesome. I absolutely love that. Before we go, I do want to say, I want to give thanks to the people at the Chiefs who helped get this awesome new background. I mean, it's a gorgeous shot of Arrowhead, what I think is one of the most iconic venues in all of sports. So the Chiefs, you guys came through to set us up here on Out West. So big thanks to everybody who helped make that possible, Matt.
Well, I found a way to mail not one group of items, but also I found a way to mail the stuff behind you. It got out there. You found a way to put it up because we get the stuff to Ari finally. And he's like, all right, how do I put it up? And I'm like, I don't know. He figured it out though. So glad we finally have you in some gear and have a good backdrop. Mitch is going to miss the map of the world though.
He is.
Might have to break that out from time to time.
All right. Well, listen, this was a ton of fun. I wish the Chiefs well this week against the Colts. I will be watching. It should be fun. And that's going to do it for this part of the podcast within the podcast. Out West with Ari Wolfe. Done for this week. Take care, everybody.
Man, Ari's on it. This guy's comprehensive. He just won't slow down, will he?
Yeah, and a lot to talk about right now. You know, the NFL is built around parity. The Chiefs have found a way to maintain so much success for so long. We're going to keep it going here this year in the second half of the season. But a lot of parity right now in the NFL, a lot of teams in it.
Yeah, special teams, I think, becomes part of the discussion, too, in this one-game season against the Colts. You look at what the Colts have done. They're number one in kick return average. You don't get a lot of kick returns, but they're good there. And then also number one in net punting. You talked about the physical nature of this Colts team. I talk about exceeding it. That carries over to special teams. And so the Chiefs and special teams have had good moments, but they've also had the moments of the penalties or losing field position or not flipping the field when they had a chance to flip the field. That's part of the missed opportunities. We talk about the missed offensive opportunities. 5 times they've had the ball to actually 4 times where they did the double dip, and then the third quarter in the 4 losses, I should say, 9 times they have the first possession third quarter. In the 4 losses, 3 3-and-outs and an interception. In the 5 wins, 5 touchdowns. I mean, you're looking at a critical moment, but it's also critical for special teams in all 4 phases to exceed the physical nature of the Colts, who love to live by that. That's another Chris Ballard thing.
Well, look at the Chiefs' 5 losses this year, all by 1 score. So the Chiefs haven't gotten like throttled in any game this year. It's all been by 1 score, and it's always come down to a really slim margin, right? And we saw that against Denver, of course. 3 of the Chiefs' 5 losses this year have come down to a 3-point deficit. So in games like that, where the Chiefs are in all of these games and they have a chance to win all of these games, it boils down to little things like special teams. And yeah, if you look at the Broncos game, well, the Marvin Mims huge punt return that goes all the way down to the 12-yard line. And I mean, the Chiefs' defense was remarkable in that sequence because the drive begins inside the 15 and they still hold Denver to a field goal. But still, that's 3 points, and look at the final score, right? And there was other instances like that as well. I think about the Jags game earlier this year, which kind of inexplicable, a game the Chiefs had multiple times? Well, there was multiple penalties on special teams. So, yeah, I'm with you. The Chiefs special teams have had big moments this year, but in a game like this, again, when you're facing a very good team, and I expect it's going to come down to the last 8 minutes, you want your special teams to be pristine and not allow the Colts to have even more opportunities, because you look at this Colts squad, not a lot of weaknesses, and they really put pressure on you. And I look back at the Steelers game that the Colts lost earlier this year.
Yeah.
They turned the ball over 6 times. You can get these guys, but it's difficult. They still only lost that game by a touchdown, despite 6 giveaways. So let's steal some possessions in this game. Let's play really sound football on special teams, and let's finish in the red zone offensively, and the Chiefs can definitely win this game.
Yeah, and it gets my attention. Daniel Jones threw for 316 on Denver. Man, I'm like, wow, I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
But yes, you're right. The margin is very, very slim in these games, and special teams can decide it one way or another. At the very least, can't have a PAT blocked.
No.
You're going to go up 4. It's going to be just it was the reverse of what happened in Super Bowl 57 when Leo Chanel blocked the San Francisco PAT. It only killed some momentum. It made it a 3-point game. It changes everything for Denver, knowing that a field goal will tie it.
Yeah.
And so they just, their play sheet now goes, oh, well, let's add 4 more pages here.
Well, think about it. So when Denver tied the game, I think it was 4th and 6. So if they're down by 4 with 5 minutes left, you think they kick the field goal? They go for it. And if they don't get it, you get the ball back with great field position, a chance to just
up 4.
You have a chance to just end the game with the ball in your hands. Yeah,
Yep.
I mean, it comes down to those little things. And I think we've experienced a lot of that this season. The Chiefs, though, for so many years have seized those little things.
Yep.
That's still there. Just a matter of doing that over the course of the final 7 games, and got to do it against these guys.
And doing it in a 1-game season.